It was just past midnight when I saw her. Not in the boardroom, not in some flashy company event, but outside, running alone under the flickering streetlights, sweat glistening on her forehead, and a look in her eyes I'd never seen before. My CEO, the woman who usually wore power suits like armor and spoke in calm, commanding tones that could silence a room, was running. And she wasn't running for exercise. She was running like someone was chasing her, like she was running from something I wasn't supposed to see. I froze at first, unsure if I should call out or pretend I hadn't noticed. But then she glanced over her shoulder. Her eyes met mine, wide, urgent, almost desperate, and she whispered something that made my stomach twist so tightly I could barely breathe. "Run with me, and I'll tell you my secret." A secret? From my CEO? Me, the intern who barely knew how to navigate the office printer without accidentally causing a small fire drill, was being invited into something forbidden, dangerous, and somehow vital. I hesitated. I thought about everything I knew about her, the flawless presentations, the sharp emails, the carefully curated image of perfection she showed the world. None of it explained this moment. None of it explained the urgency in her voice, the tremor in her hand when she glanced back again, as if she feared someone or something was following her. I took a step forward, then another. My shoes squeaked on the pavement, a tiny betrayal in the otherwise silent night. She slowed for a fraction of a second, looking at me, and that's when I realized she wasn't just inviting me to run. She was testing me, and if I refused, well, I didn't want to think about that. I started jogging to keep up, my heart hammering so loud I was sure she could hear it over the sound of my own panic. Every instinct screamed at me to stop, to retreat to the safety of the office lights, but something inside me, a mix of fear, curiosity, and disbelief, pushed me forward. And as we turned down a narrow alley, shadows stretching along the walls like dark fingers, I realized this wasn't just a late-night jog. This was the beginning of something I couldn't yet understand, something that would pull me into the hidden side of my CEO's life, a side no employee, no board member, not even her closest friends, had ever seen. She glanced back one last time, her face half lit by the flickering street lamp, and whispered again, almost too softly to hear, "If you want to know who I really am, you have to trust me, and you have to run." And in that moment, I understood that I was about to cross a line I could never uncross. I was about to learn a secret so dangerous, so shocking, that my entire life, and my perception of everything I thought I knew about my CEO, was about to be flipped upside down. I didn't know it yet, but running beside her meant stepping into a world where nothing was what it seemed, and where the next step could change everything. I never thought my CEO, Marissa Kane, had a life outside the office. At work, she was a storm, efficient, demanding, impossible to impress, and utterly magnetic. People whispered about her, of course. Some said she was ruthless. Others said she had a hidden warmth no one ever saw. Me? I mostly kept my head down. I was an entry-level analyst, someone who blended into the background, who counted spreadsheets better than hearts, and who definitely didn't run after CEOs in the middle of the night. But that night changed everything. Marissa had been under a lot of pressure lately. The company was pushing for a major merger, and rumors of internal sabotage had been swirling for months. People were tense, alliances were shifting like sand, and the air in the office had this constant, low-level hum of anxiety. Marissa, as always, seemed untouchable until she wasn't. I remembered our first real interaction, months ago. I'd made a small error on a project report, and instead of the usual corporate reprimand, she had cornered me in the hallway. I expected sharp words, but instead she had looked at me, really looked, and said something I would never forget. "Everyone has a breaking point. Know yours, or someone else will find it for you." I didn't understand it at the time, but now, after seeing her run in the dark, it all made sense. She knew something I didn't, and she was desperate. As we jogged through the quiet streets, I tried to make sense of it. Why me? Why this middle-of-the-night chase, whispered secrets, and half-lit alleys? I had seen Marissa in meetings, commanding attention like a queen on a throne, but never vulnerable like this. And yet, the vulnerability in her eyes wasn't weakness, it was a warning, a plea. The city around us was eerily empty, the occasional street lamp flickering like it had a pulse. I noticed the way she occasionally glanced over her shoulder, the sharp inhale before she darted down a side street, as if the shadows themselves were following her. I realized then that this wasn't about exercise or stress relief. She was running from something, and I had no idea what it was, but I could feel it pressing down on us, heavy and invisible, like the air before a storm. I wanted to ask her what was happening. I wanted to tell her that I didn't even know if I could keep up, but I knew I couldn't. Somehow, I had crossed a threshold, and whatever lay ahead was no longer just her secret. It was mine too now. We paused for a moment under a flickering lamp, catching our breaths. Her chest heaved, eyes scanning the darkness around us. She leaned in, whispering again, but this time it wasn't about running. It was about survival. "You have to trust me," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "If you don't, you'll never understand what's really happening. And you might not even make it through tonight." I swallowed hard, my pulse racing. I wanted answers, but a tiny voice in the back of my mind screamed to turn back. I had a choice: to run blindly into whatever she was about to reveal, or walk away and never know the truth. I chose to run. And in that choice, I realized just how little I actually knew about Marissa Kane, and just how dangerous her secret might be. We ducked down a narrow alley, the distant hum of the city fading until all I could hear was our ragged breathing and the echo of our footsteps against the wet pavement. Marissa's pace was relentless, but so was mine, fueled by adrenaline and a mix of fear and curiosity I couldn't shake. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong, terribly wrong, but the pull to follow her, to see this secret, was stronger than my fear. "Why are we running?" I finally managed to gasp, my words nearly lost in the night. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she glanced back at me, her eyes scanning the shadows like she expected someone, or something, to appear at any second. "Do you trust me?" she asked softly, almost pleadingly. I nodded, unsure why, because trust felt like a dangerous gamble right now. We turned another corner, and I noticed subtle changes in her demeanor. The CEO who usually radiated control now seemed haunted. Her hands shook slightly as she pushed her hair back, her sharp, elegant features softened by fatigue and fear. I could see it in the way she flinched at every distant sound, in the way her shoulders tensed and relaxed, as if anticipating an unseen threat. I don't understand," I admitted, my voice trembling. "What's going on? Who are we running from?" Marissa's eyes flickered with a mix of frustration and desperation. "It's not about someone chasing us in the way you think," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It's about what's inside, what I've carried for years. If the wrong people find out," she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. I could feel the weight of it. I tried to process her words. Something she was hiding, something dangerous, something that could ruin lives, maybe more than ours. My mind raced. Was it corporate espionage? A scandal? Or something darker, something no one could imagine? We reached a dead end, an abandoned parking lot, dimly lit and surrounded by brick walls. Marissa slowed to a stop, chest heaving. She turned to me, eyes intense, almost pleading. "This is where I need to tell you everything. But once I do," she trailed off, leaving the sentence dangling like a knife in the air. I realized then that whatever she was about to reveal would change everything. My career, my life, maybe even the way I saw the world. And yet, despite the fear clawing at me, I stepped closer, knowing I had no choice but to hear it. Because by now, I was in too deep. The parking lot felt unreal, as if the city itself had disappeared, leaving only the two of us in this quiet, shadowed world. The flickering street lamp above cast Marissa's face in sharp relief, her eyes dark, stormy, and unyielding, yet holding a vulnerability I'd never seen. I could feel the weight of her secret pressing down on the air around us, making it almost hard to breathe. "Okay," I whispered, barely audible. "Tell me." She shook her head, a faint, bitter laugh escaping her lips. "It's not that simple," she said. Her voice quivered slightly, betraying the calm mask she wore at work. "Once I tell you, there's no going back. Do you understand that?" I nodded again, though fear wrapped around my chest like steel bands. I wanted to turn away, to run back to the safety of my tiny apartment, the fluorescent office lights, the normal life I had known. But a strange force, curiosity, loyalty, maybe even something I didn't yet understand, kept my feet planted. I had chosen this, and now I had to face it. She took a deep breath and began pacing slowly, her hands tracing the edges of the concrete wall like she was trying to anchor herself. For years, she began, her voice low and measured. I've lived a double life. Not the one anyone in this office, or outside it, knows about. And it's been dangerous, complicated, deadly even. I swallowed hard. Deadly. Her gaze met mine, sharp and unflinching. Yes, she said. And if the wrong people ever find out, it's not just my life at risk. It's everyone I care about, everyone who gets close to me. And now, you're close. Too close. A shiver ran down my spine. The air felt heavier, the shadows around us seeming to grow thicker, as if the darkness itself was listening, waiting. I wanted to ask more, but I couldn't. The words felt trapped in my throat. She moved closer, lowering her voice to almost a whisper. I've had to make choices that no one would ever understand. Choices that haunt me every single day. And tonight someone tried to take it all away. Someone tried to expose me. I felt panic rise in my chest. Expose you? Who? She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into the pocket of her running jacket, hesitated, then pulled out something small, cold, and metallic. She held it in her hand, just out of reach, as if revealing it too soon might unleash something uncontrollable. I can't tell you everything yet, she said, her voice shaking. But if you're going to survive this night, if you're going to understand me, you have to promise me one thing. Anything, I said without thinking. Trust me, she whispered. Her eyes bore into mine, dark and intense. No matter what you see next, no matter what you feel, don't question it. Don't run. And don't ever forget that the world as you know it isn't real. And then she pressed something into my hand. Cold, heavy, familiar in a way I couldn't place. My fingers closed around it, heart hammering, breath shallow, because I knew, without a doubt, that whatever she had just given me would change everything. And at that moment, I realized I was on the edge of something massive, something terrifying, and I had no idea if I was ready. I barely had time to process the cold, metallic object in my hand before Marissa's phone buzzed. A single, silent vibration that made her flinch. She looked at it, eyes wide, and whispered, "They know we're here." Before I could ask who they were, a shadow shifted at the edge of the parking lot. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just one person. Figures emerged, moving quickly and silently, encircling us like predators closing in. My mind screamed to run, but Marissa grabbed my arm. "You weren't supposed to see this yet," she hissed, her face a mask of panic and resolve. "I thought I could protect you, but now you're part of it too." Suddenly, the object in my hand vibrated violently. I looked down. It wasn't just metal, it was a key to something hidden, something dangerous. And now, whoever was coming for us knew I had it. Marissa's eyes darted to mine, fierce and desperate. "This changes everything. If they get it, it's not just me they'll destroy, it's you. And everyone we've ever trusted." The shadows closed in. The night air felt electric, alive with danger. And in that instant, I realized we were no longer running from her secret. We were running from everyone who wanted it. The shadows moved faster now, closing the distance with terrifying precision. Marissa grabbed my hand, yanking me behind a row of abandoned shipping containers. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst through my chest. The key in my hand felt like it was burning through my palm. Whoever, or whatever, was out there wanted it desperately, and I had no idea why. "They're not just after the key," Marissa whispered, voice strained. "They want everything I've hidden. And if they get it, it won't just ruin me. It could destroy the entire company, and more." A sudden noise, a sharp metallic clang, made me freeze. From the darkness, a figure lunged at us. Marissa reacted instantly, spinning and striking with precision I didn't know a CEO could have. The figure stumbled back, and I caught a glimpse of a mask that hid the face, a face I suddenly recognized from past office rumors, someone I trusted. "They've been inside all along," Marissa hissed. "Someone who pretended to be loyal. Someone who has been watching, waiting for this moment." I felt my knees weaken. The world I thought I knew, the office, the colleagues, even my CEO herself, was gone. In its place was chaos, danger, and secrets so deep I couldn't fathom. Marissa shoved me toward a side door in the container, urgency written across her face. "The key, it opens the vault. Everything we've hidden, everything they'd kill to possess, it's in there. You have to get it inside." I sprinted, adrenaline surging. My fingers fumbled the key, the weight of it suddenly unbearable. Behind me, voices shouted, footsteps crashed, and the masked figures closed in. I threw open the vault door, heart hammering, and slammed the key into the lock. A blinding light exploded from the vault, followed by a deafening hum. I staggered back, shielding my eyes. When I looked again, the vault was empty. Nothing but shadows. Marissa appeared beside me, eyes wide, shaking her head. "It wasn't a vault," she whispered. "It was a test. And now, they know we passed it." Before I could ask what she meant, a voice, familiar, calm, terrifying, echoed from the darkness. "Congratulations. You've both just walked into the real game." And in that moment, I realized the night wasn't over. Not even close. The night didn't end when the vault emptied. Instead, it shifted into something far more personal, a reckoning with truth, trust, and the choices we make when the world turns upside down. Marissa and I stood in the cold alley, breathing hard, our eyes locked on the shadows that had followed us this far. "I should have never brought you into this," she said quietly, her voice trembling in a way I hadn't heard before. "I thought I could handle it alone. But tonight, you proved something. You proved that you can trust, that you can act when it matters most." I didn't know how to respond. The night had been a blur of running, fear, and impossible revelations. My mind kept circling back to the masked figures, the key, the vault that wasn't a vault. But even in the chaos, one thing was clear. Marissa wasn't just a CEO with secrets. She was human, fearful, brave, and carrying burdens no one could ever imagine. She reached out, placing her hand over mine, steadying me. "What happened tonight? It changes everything. Not just for the company, not just for me, but for both of us. And maybe, if we're careful, we can finally set things right." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and lingering unease. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a raw clarity. The key, the shadows, the test, they were all part of a bigger picture I was only beginning to understand. And somehow, in surviving the night, I felt stronger, more aware, more alive. As dawn broke, the city slowly stirred awake, oblivious to the chaos that had unfolded in its quiet streets. Marissa and I walked back, side by side, no words needed. The bond forged in those moments, between fear and trust, between danger and courage, was unspoken but undeniable. By the time we reached the office, the world looked normal again, as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. I could see it in Marissa's eyes, in the subtle way she moved, the way she now allowed herself just a fraction of vulnerability in front of me. She had shown me her secret, yes, but more importantly, she had shown me the weight of responsibility, the cost of power, and the strength of human connection. Weeks later, the story of that night remained untold to anyone else. The company continued as usual, meetings went on, and the rumors about Marissa's perfection persisted. But I knew the truth. That night had tested us, shaped us, and left a mark that no office politics, no merger, no spreadsheet could ever erase. I still don't know who the masked figures were, or why they wanted the key so desperately. Maybe I'll never know. But I do know this. Sometimes, the people we think we know best are carrying worlds we can't even imagine. And sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is run with them into the unknown, trusting that the leap of faith will be worth it. And as I look back on that night, I realize something else. Secrets aren't just dangerous, they're human. And the ones worth keeping, worth fighting for, are the ones that teach us who we really are.